In this video, we're continuing on with the Using Quadratic Formula worksheet on the KutaSoftware website under the Infinite Algebra 1 section. I'll leave a link in the description below so you know how to access this free worksheet. Now quickly, let's review the formula. Our quadratic formula is the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of the quantity b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. And a, b, c are the values of the coefficients within the quadratic. So ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, and c. And we can use this formula when that quadratic is set to equal 0. So in number 7, it does not equal 0, it equals 4. So we have to start by subtracting 4 from both sides. So we'll have 4b squared plus 8b plus 3 equal to 0. Now, our a value is equal to 4, our b value in the formula, not the b value of the equation, is equal to 8, and our c value is equal to 3. So we're going to have the opposite of b, the opposite of 8, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 8 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 3, all over 2 times a, 2 times 4. Simplifying, we'll have negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64, since 8 squared is 64, minus 4 times 4 times 3. 4 times 4 is 16, times 3 is 48. And that is all over 2 times 4, which is equal to 8. So we'll have negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus 8, of 64 minus 48, which is the square root of 16, all over 8. So that's equal to negative 8 plus or minus 4, since the square root of 16 is 4, divided by 8. So our two solutions are negative 8 plus 4 over 8 and negative 8 minus 4 over 8. Negative 4 plus 4 is a negative 4 divided by 8, and then negative 8 minus 4 is going to be negative 12 over 8. Simplifying, negative 4/8 is the same as negative 1/2, and negative 12/8 both are divisible by 4, so that'll be negative 3/2. So our solutions in number 7 are negative 1/2 and negative 3/2. Let's move on to number 8. In number 8, again, we're going to have to set this to where it's equal to 0, and we'll do that by adding 10 to both sides. So we'll have 2m squared minus 7m minus 3 equal to 0. So our a value is a positive 2, our b value is a negative 7, and our c value is a negative 3. So the opposite of b is the opposite of negative 7 plus or minus the square root of b squared, negative 7 squared, minus 4 times a, 4 times 2, then times c times negative 3. That's all over, or divided, by 2 times a, which is 2 times 2. Simplifying, the opposite of negative 7 is positive 7, and then we'll have plus or minus the square root. Negative 7 squared is 49, minus 4 times 2 times negative 3, which is negative 24, but as opposed to subtracting a negative 24, we'll add a positive 24, and that's going to be all over 2 times 2, which is 4. So this equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 plus 24, which is 73, all over 4. And the square root of 73 cannot be simplified. So our two solutions are 7 plus the square root of 73 over 4 and 7 minus the square root of 73 over 4. Those are our solutions for number 8. In number 9, I'll start by subtracting 5 in order to get this quadratic equal to 0. So 2x squared minus 3x minus 20 equals 0, since negative 15 minus 5 is negative 20. Now my a is equal to positive 2, my b equals negative 3, and my c equals negative 20. So for my quadratic formula, I'll have the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of the quantity b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So that's the opposite of negative 3, plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 20 all over 2 times 2. The opposite of negative 3 is 3. Negative 3 squared is 9, and we're subtracting 4 times 2 times negative 20, which is subtracting a negative 160, or the same as adding a positive 160, and that's all divided by positive 4. So we'll have 3 plus or minus the square root of 169 divided by 4, which 169 is a perfect square. 13 squared, or negative 13 squared, is equal to 169. So we'll have 3 plus or minus 13 all over 4. So our two solutions, 3 plus 13 divided by 4, and 3 minus 13 divided by 4. 3 plus 13 is 16 over 4. 3 minus 13 is negative 10 over 4. 16 divided by 4, 4 goes into 16 evenly 4 times, and we can simplify negative 10 fourths as negative 5 halves, since both are divisible by 2. So my solutions in number 9 are 4 and negative 5 halves. Continuing on to number 10, I need to subtract 2 from both sides in order to get this quadratic equal to 0. So x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. So my a value is 1, since 1 times x squared is x squared. My b value is 2, and my c value is a negative 3. So I'll have the opposite of b, the opposite of 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 2 squared, minus 4 times a, 4 times 1, times c, which is times negative 3, all over 2 times a, 2 times 1. So I'll have negative 2 plus or minus the square root. 2 squared is 4, and we're subtracting a negative 12, since 4 times 1 times negative 3 is negative 12, but that's the same as adding a positive 12, and we'll be dividing that by 2 times 1, which is 2. So that's negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 16, since 4 plus 12 equals 16, divided by 2, which 16 is a perfect square, so negative 2 plus or minus 4, since the square root of 16 is equal to 4, all over 2. So one solution is negative 2 plus 4 over 2, and my other solution is negative 2 minus 4 over 2. Negative 2 plus 4 is a positive 2, and that's over 2. And negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6, and that's over 2. 2 divided by 2 is positive 1. Negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. So my solutions in number 10 are 1 and negative 3. Continuing on to number 7, I'll have to add 7 to both sides in order to get this quadratic equal to 0. So I'll have 2k squared plus 9k plus 7 equal to 0. My a value is positive 2, my b value is a positive 9, and my c value is a positive 7. So I'll have the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of the quantity b squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. So I'll have negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 9 squared, which is 81, minus 4 times 2 times 7, which is 56, and that's all divided by 2 times 2, which is equal to 4. So I'll have negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 minus 56, which is 25, all over 4. So that's going to be negative 9 plus or minus 5 over 4, since the square root of 25 is 5. So one solution is negative 9 plus 5 over 4, and my other solution is negative 9 minus 5 over 4. Negative 9 plus 5 is negative 4 over 4, and negative 9 minus 5 will be negative 14 over 4. Negative 4 divided by 4 is a negative 1, and negative 14 divided by 4, we can simplify this fraction since 4 does not go into 14 evenly. Dividing both by 2, we'll get negative 7 over 2. So my solutions in number 11 are negative 1 and negative 7 halves. And lastly in this video, I'll go over number 12. In number 12, an easy thing to do would be to divide both sides by 5 to get that r squared is equal to 80 divided by 5, which is 16. And then after that, we'd take the square root of both sides to get that r is equal to the square root of 16, which my two solutions for that would be 4 and negative 4. However, we're solving by using the quadratic formula. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to subtract 80 in order to get the quadratic equal to 0. So I'll have 5r squared minus 80 equals 0. And that's when I subtract 80 from both sides of my original equation. So now my a value you can see is positive 5. My b value is 0 since I'm not adding or subtracting any quantity of r to the first, or simply r, and then my c value is negative 80. So remembering my formula, the opposite of b, well, the opposite of 0 is 0, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 0 squared, minus 4 times a times c, divided by 2 times a, 2 times 5. So we'll have 0 plus or minus the square root of 4 times 5 times negative 80, but since that quantity is subtracted, it's going to be positive 1600 all over 2 times 5, which is 10. And the square root of 1600 is 40. So I'm going to have 0 plus or minus 40 all over 10, which my two solutions would be positive 40 over 10 or negative 40 over 10, depending on whether that 40 is added or subtracted. So that's going to be either a positive 4 or a negative 4. And that's how you use the quadratic formula to solve for number 12. Another way to make this problem a little easier is after you subtract that 80, simply divide both sides by 5, simplifying our problem. So then you'll get r squared minus 16 equal to 0. So now use the a value of 1, a b value of 0, and a c value of negative 16, and you will indeed get the same solution. So feel free to do out the math for that, and let me know what you got. And with that, we wrap up this video. Join me in the next video where I'll finish this worksheet completing numbers 13 through 18. However, if you haven't done so already, remember to click that like button, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with your peers.